Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Shaman's Cave. I'm Renee Barabo, the practical shaman.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sandra Engerman, and I'm delighted to say that it's snowing in Santa Fe today.
I love that. In fact, it snowed here in the desert up in the mountains. The snow yesterday was all the way down to the desert floor almost. And I thought maybe I'll go skiing one more time.
Yeah, that would be great.
I would probably like that because I hadn't been in years, and it was there's nothing like skiing to make you feel connected with nature. But that's not what we're talking about today. Well, maybe it is.
Well, just to add to that, now that I'm 72, I can't say this anymore, but all my life I have said that I only have one regret in life. And that one regret was not learning how to ski until I was in my 30s, because
Ah.
I really loved it, but I had too much fear in my body by that time. I wasn't the brave little kid on the slopes, so that I used to say that was my only regret in life, and now I have books of regret.
No books of regret. When I went skiing a few weeks ago, it was like a couple years ago, didn't ski because it was before I understood this glass thing and how you need glasses and the shadows and the lights change when your eyes change. And so I stopped skiing
Mm.
because I thought I had a really bad day in Park City once. But then I learned about the better goggles and the glasses, and I was like a 20-year-old again, maybe
Um,
11-year-old. And one of the things is that because I skied and I used to run ski trips to Vermont when I was 11 for, me, I've always been industrious. It was the only way I could afford to ski was to get 30 other people to go with me. And so I ran big buses up there and stuff. And all my friends on Facebook who used to be on my buses are now my friends on Facebook. And so one guy was in Bath this week, and we're still skiing, and I love that part that all of those people who used to get on my bus junkets to Vermont are still skiing, are the ones that I know for sure.
yeah, yeah, that's really neat.
Hmm.
So we have an interesting topic today to talk about, and I'll introduce it because we both Renee and I have a lot to talk about. But one of the things that I wanted to start with, which I thought was pretty interesting, and I'm really gonna apologize here because I can't remember the show that I was watching. But Woods and I are watching a Netflix little series of shows, and there was a show about people getting ready, trying to get an alien invasion coming in to help to bring information to Earth. And um, so it looks like the aliens came, but they actually didn't. They sent something to Earth, and what they sent to Earth was a really old record from the 1950s, on a gold record of how the people of Earth messed up, and divided instead of unified. And that ended up being the whole message of the series and the movie. I burst into tears when I watched it because it was just the other day, and you can really see what we've done as a planet. I mean, how more divisive can we possibly get with people not agreeing about absolutely anything? And what's really needed right now is for all of us to come together. And so when I first got involved in shamanism, and I've shared this on other shows, the shamanic community was incredibly divisive. And so I've always been a community person, and so I scheduled a meeting of all the shamanic teachers in California, and about 100 of them showed up. And I said, "How can we support each other instead of backstab each other?" Anyway, out of that meeting, we ended up with a very small group that came together to put on these wonderful gatherings, and that's how we created unity. But a magazine came out of our work, Shamans, and the editor was Timothy White, who's still alive, having a wonderful life in South America. And Shaman's was filled with divisive articles, tearing down other shamanic teachers. It was unbelievable. Every editorial, every article was tearing down shamanic teachers. So one day I was in California. I had already moved to Santa Fe when Shaman's came out, and I asked Timothy if we could meet. And I said, Timothy, I'm really confused about the divisiveness because our work together when I was in San Francisco was all about unifying the shamanic community. And the magazine is the opposite of what we agreed to do. And the metaphor that he gave me was to think about a well where there were all these crabs. And when one crab would start to get out of the well, the rest of the crabs would pull it down. And that was the job of other shamanic people to do that, to make sure that no shamanic teacher got too high in the well. Um, so it was all about making sure everybody stayed down. And that really affected me. We're going back, we're talking 1983 when I had this conversation with Timothy, but yet we're still seeing it today. We're seeing where people, instead of uplifting and celebrating the successes and how we're helping the community, we love the gossip when somebody made a misstep, and then it's the gossip that takes over. Um, and again, we're divided, like the world is divided right now.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really interesting thing. And I know for myself, that's been a a real deep piece of my own shadow work that I had to do at this some time would be like, and I think it comes from that idea of comparing myself to other people and, oh, they've got something that I don't have, and it's a big piece of the 4 step in AA is looking at, where am I being jealous and envious? And the envious is where when I have a nice car in my own driveway, why am I, you know, like in the person's Tesla or whatever, I don't know where Tesla came from, but their car in the other driveway, and having an opinion about that they've got a better car than me, or like you've got more people than me in your group, and and it was a really ugly part of myself that I really worked hard at, and really, and so I guess what I'm saying is that there must be somehow that we have this ingrained thing that of comparing ourselves, so that we can't necessarily be always as happy for the other people's joy as we think we should be, but it's a fixable problem. If you have that problem, I would really highly recommend you do the work to take care of it, because when from that place, there is no real joy for yourself. And right now I'm doing the book walkers club, and I'm doing the wind oracle circle, and I'm really like, there was only a few people who showed up today for the book walkers club, and I felt more alive and more engaged with it than when I used to think like, well, where are the other 50 people who didn't show up today?
Right.
But that to really be present for what is there in my life instead of what isn't there in my life. And I think that we could use a lot more of that out in the world right now.
Yeah, and in the shamanic community, it's like it's almost like, it's like you get scared when you put out a new book. You get
Mhm,
scared when you put out something new because, what the shamanic community, again, likes to do is to judge instead of to celebrate and instead of to come together. People, students talk about, oh, let's come together, let's do more world ceremonies, let's bring in more unity. But yet there's a tendency, well, I study with this teacher because they do more powerful ceremonies. And I've always asked, what's a more powerful ceremony? Because the ones that you can't follow because they're too complex, that's not a powerful ceremony because it was too complex for you to put your whole being into performing it. And so, we see a lot where people go, well, and Sandra has this gift, and this person has this gift, and Renee has this gift. And yes, we all have different strengths in how we teach. But what gets what gets communicated a lot is when a drama happens. It's amazing how people gather and put so much energy into the drama instead of the strength of the community, instead of saying, well, that was really, I'm really sorry that that happened.
mhm,
Let's come back together. It did happen. Let's come back together instead of feeding so much gossip. I know
mhm,
it's an issue. I know it's an issue in every single practice that exists on the planet because, as you said, if people haven't done their shadow work, they move into judgment, comparing, and jealousy. And
mhm,
what a time on the planet to really want to come together and join our hearts together, to join our lights together instead of trying to actually separate our lights. It's really interesting to me how um, there's a part of the community that doesn't want to evolve to how do we uplift everyone? How do we uplift everyone?
that's such a great question. I was thinking of this week, this man died in the addiction community, and, you know, right off, people go into judgment about, well, he had a kid and how selfish that he was. And first off, I thought like, well, how sad for this little boy that he's never going to get to see this dad who loved him more than life himself, you know? And that if it was a hard again, this was such my big piece of shadow work because, I was judgmental about my sister who was a heroin addict. And it wasn't until the last few years after she'd had a massive stroke where I came back around to get to know her. And she said she always wanted to write a book that was, if you'd asked me what I wanted to grow up, what I wanted to be when I grew up, it wasn't this. And to really see that somebody from their place of hurt and their place of pain and their place of suffering, and you would think that most of us went to shamanic training to become healers.
Right.
And yet, if we can't even heal our own judgmental wounds around these things, like how are we going to show up in the community? How are we going to show up when, somebody has like, my book has been a number one hot new release for over a month. And like I would think that everyone who listens to our podcast would be out there celebrating and buying a book.
That's
You know
right.
what I mean? Wouldn't you think? Like, we should have we have 50,000 people in the Shamans cave and thousands of people who listen to this. And I can tell you, I haven't sold thousands of books yet.
Right.
And I could either be resentful about it or think, okay, this book is going to land in the hands of the people who are going to benefit from it. And that's where I'm choosing to live these days.
Right. Yeah, yeah. I wrote a book, A Fall to Grace, and it was my only self-published book. It didn't do that badly for a self-published book. And the fact that I have cartons and cartons of it, but I don't have the physical ability at this point to set up an account with Amazon to sell it on Amazon. So that book always had a real cult following. I mean, a real cult following. The people who loved it more than anything. You know, they
Mm,
drove me crazy writing letters, and it was mostly teenagers. It was a cult,
mm,
became a cult book with teenagers. And it's just really interesting how what I found for myself in this last year, because, when I've taught for the Shift Network, I've gotten really good enrollments. And I know a lot of people have judged me for that. My students really appreciate the classes that I've taught. I put everything into it, and I have been teaching for 44 years. And so, people come because they want to see an elder teacher. But, I know there's been a tremendous amount of judgment. Sent towards me about that. I absolutely I know that. I know the shamanic community too well. But the courses that I've really loved was, when the Shift Network would, set me up with a really, really small group to do something in particular, or where I did something just for a really small group in particular. And my God, how I would shine and how I would feel, and I would feel so uplifted because I was able to truly connect with community.
mhm,
So, and part of really being able to truly connect with community is to move into a place of unity where you don't judge and where you don't say, well, I'm too nervous to work with you because of who you are. And it's like, what I tell people on Messenger when they say that to me is, hey, I'm just another suffering soul. I have another suffering soul. Please don't project this on me, please. um, and that's what we have to realize is that we're all humans with a heart and a soul, and everybody, I mean, unless you're some unbelievably ascended master that I don't know about right now, but my world doesn't expand that far out. um, People are really having a hard time right now.
mhm,
And to be able to uplift them, I mean, I have polishing the path of the soul out. I have 6 reviews. We have 58,000 people on Shaman's Cave. I have 48,000 people on my author's page. I have over 20,000 people on my email list, and I have 5, I think 5 reviews. They're great reviews, and I don't take it personally either. I did it in the beginning. I just realized that, people are called to do what people wanna do, and that's really not the point of the show, is to, kinda say the shamanic community doesn't show up, which it doesn't always show up, and we always know that. It's is does the shamanic community show up in love, whether you buy Renee's book or whether you're willing to give a product of mine a review? That's really not the point. The point is, how does the shamanic community come together from a place of unity, like the spirits? Everything that the spirits teach in shamanism is about unity. Everything is about unity. Everything is about community. Everything is about honoring the land and honoring life. And so when we decide to put so much energy into divisive energies, and where we celebrate when somebody falls down the well instead of climbs up, what's the message that we're putting out of how we're being in service to
Mm,
all of life right now? It's just a question for us to all reflect on of, can I go inside myself and celebrate for Renee's success? I'm really, when people are telling me now about a new book or something coming out, I'm really I'm celebrating so hard with them. It feels so good to do that
mhm.
instead of, wow, I wish somebody would say that about me. It's like, this is where the energy's going. So let's support where the energy's going instead of judge and compare. Let's support where the energy's going and stay with that energy and see where it goes and see where it grows and see where it evolves to.
I think that's such a good point, and probably, without, beating this over the head, because we want to uplift it. So let's make a commitment, everyone, to uplift somebody else this week. Like, and if we're looking at something where somebody has a success that's not your own, look at that. Take a walk with that, and like, why am I not happy for that person? Really go in and ask the hard questions. And even and I whatever the politics are, is like, to be that we're throwing energy at people like that. We've learned how our energy, we understand how energy works, and yet we're throwing so much hate and divisiveness and stuff into the world. What if we started to honor the path that somebody else took to get to the finish line or their finish line, even if we don't agree with it? And start holding up people. Maybe if we started holding up people into the light a little bit more, some of their own shadow stuff would be revealed, and they could maybe work on it. But if we're just throwing out the negative towards other things, I think we're just making more goop.
Absolutely. And for those of you who are on Facebook, I know a lot of people left. Experiment. And when somebody talks about their work, one of the things I love to do is say, "Oh my God, you're doing such brilliant work." Try doing that. Try doing that with a bunch of people that you respect, not like, "Oh my God, who is this person?" And, but that you really do, that you're really touched. Say that the work is brilliant and touched. And what happens for me when I do that is a light. I feel light coming out of my face.
Mhm.
Absolutely no light is coming out of the other person's face too.
That's really beautiful. It just reminded me, I'm in this Kindle self-publishing group and in an Ingram Spark self-publishing group, and these people that they hold up their book, and it's the first thing, and they are so excited that they sold 1 or 2 copies or 5 copies or 10 copies, and I'm celebrating that with them.
Right.
"Oh, that's really great. You sold 4 copies today." You know, and and that might not be what my goal is, but that's a big movement for somebody to get all the way through writing something, publishing it, and getting it out in the world. And the same goes when people publish a class or they do, risk with a video. It's a lot of risk to put that out there into the world in this place. So just let's see who you can celebrate this week.
Yes, I love that. I really love that. And I celebrate Renee for the work that you put out into the world. I celebrate both of us for the Shaman's Cave and for bringing people together and getting the wonderful responses that we're getting from people that they really love to listen to us. And so we hope that you'll continue to enjoy the show, listen to us, and subscribe and support us and celebrate with us and celebrate with each other in every way that you can.